Silly girl. That's what my lawyer said after reading the papers my sister forged. I was halfway through my morning coffee in London when he told me the condo my grandmother left me was gone. Sold, signed, stolen. My sister had turned my inheritance into her own payday, and the proof was sitting right there in front of me. I didn't scream. I didn't even hang up. I just stared at the window, watching the rain slide down like it already knew what I was about to do next. Because if my sister thought I'd stay quiet overseas, she had no idea what silence can do. I used to think distance protected me from family drama, from their constant comparisons, from the quiet looks that said I'd never be enough. Living in London gave me space to breathe, to build something of my own. My sister Malene stayed behind in Florida, married well, became the perfect daughter everyone bragged about at church. Mom adored her for it. And me, I was the dreamer who left. But there was one person who never made me feel small, Grandma Evelyn. She was sunlight in a world of cold approval. Every summer, she'd brew lavender tea on her balcony overlooking Tampa Bay. The ceiling fan would hum while she told me stories about how she learned to start over after Grandpa died. "Don't let life make you small, Lizzie," she'd whisper, squeezing my hand. "You're meant to take up space." That condo wasn't just property. It was her legacy, a place soaked with her scent, her laughter, her love. When she passed, she left me the deed, handwritten and signed with her soft cursive. It was her way of saying, "I see you, even if no one else does." After the funeral, Malene handled everything: the flowers, the paperwork, the estate meetings. She looked so composed in her cream dress, greeting relatives like a hostess instead of a grieving granddaughter. I thought she was being responsible. Turns out she was rearranging more than roses. Mom used to sigh over the phone. "You should be more like your sister. She has her life together." I'd bite my tongue, sip my coffee, and let the comment slide. I learned early that fighting for fairness in our family was like yelling into a hurricane. So when my lawyer called that morning, when he said the condo had already been sold, I felt something inside me shift. The shock was cold, precise, almost surgical. For a moment, I imagined Malene signing the papers with that polished smile of hers, the one she wore when she wanted everyone to believe she knew best. I opened my laptop, scrolling through the photos on my phone until I found one of Grandma and me on that same balcony. Her hand rested on mine. The sunlight caught the silver watch she always wore. My throat tightened. That condo was more than walls and keys. It was proof that someone once believed I was enough. And now my sister had turned it into cash. The drizzle outside grew heavier, tapping against the window like a warning. I closed my eyes and whispered to no one, "Grandma, I'm sorry. I should have protected what you gave me." Then my phone buzzed again, a new email from my lawyer. Subject line, "Inconsistencies found." My heart stilled, because deep down I already knew who was behind them. Douglas's voice carried across the crackling line. "Elizabeth, there's something off about these documents," he said. "The notary stamps don't match and the signature looks rehearsed." I pushed my chair back, staring at the screen in disbelief. "Rehearsed?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He hesitated, then exhaled. "Silly girl," he muttered softly, not at me, but at whoever thought they could get away with this. "Your sister must have forged it." Those two words, "silly girl," cut deeper than he meant them to. They stuck in my head, repeating themselves until the meaning twisted. To him, it was an observation. To me, it was a challenge. My sister thought I was too naive, too distant, too trusting to notice. Maybe I had been, but not anymore. I minimized the call and opened my email. There it was, the scanned copy of Grandma's will that Douglas had sent months ago. The signature on the estate transfer looked similar, but not identical. The loops were tighter, the pressure heavier. Malene always pressed too hard when she wrote. She liked leaving marks. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. Drops slid down the window in crooked lines, blurring the city. I felt the same blur inside me, rage and disbelief folding into something sharper. Grandma had once said, "If someone steals from you, they're not taking what's yours, they're revealing who they are." Now I finally saw who Malene really was. Douglas cleared his throat on the line. "Listen, Elizabeth, don't confront her yet. If she altered legal records, we'll need proof. I'll start pulling the property logs and payment files. You just stay quiet for now." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Okay," I said, my voice flat, controlled. "Just find out how deep it goes." After he hung up, silence filled the apartment, the kind that hums in your bones. I stared at my hands trembling slightly over the keyboard. It wasn't just about the condo. It was about every dinner table where Malene had outshone me, every eye roll when I mentioned art school, every time Mom said, "You're too emotional." Maybe I was, but emotion was what made me human, and this time it was going to make me dangerous. I spent the next few hours digging through old emails, Grandma's letters, the digital scans, even old photos of her handwriting. Every stroke, every loop became evidence. When I compared them side by side, there it was, the difference clear as daylight. The forged signature looked almost perfect. Almost. That almost would destroy her. By midnight, I was surrounded by papers and empty mugs. I sent Douglas the images and typed one final line before hitting send. She thought I wouldn't notice. She was wrong. My phone buzzed almost immediately, a notification from a blocked number. A text. "You've been asking questions." I froze. The message had no name, no punctuation, just that one sentence. My breath caught, pulse pounding. I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. Just 3 dots appearing, then disappearing. The next morning, my phone rang again. The screen flashed a name I hadn't seen in months. Malene. For a full minute, I stared at her name glowing on my screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part, curiosity, anger, maybe both, made me swipe to answer. "Liz." Her voice burst through, sugary and loud. "You won't believe how busy I've been. I finally sold Grandma's condo. Closed the deal last week." My fingers tightened around the phone. "You sold it?" "Yep," she said proudly. "Cash offer. $320. The realtor said I handled it like a pro. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for not getting in the way. I know all that legal stuff overwhelms you. I didn't speak. Not because I couldn't, but because if I did, my voice would tremble from fury. And hey," she continued, cheerful as ever, "I'm sending you $10,000 next week. I figured you could use a little help with rent over there." $10,000. From my inheritance. "Malene," I said slowly, "you do realize that condo was mine." She laughed lightly, like I'd made a joke. "Oh, come on. Grandma wanted it for both of us. You're off in Europe living your art dream. I handled everything for the family." "For the family." She said it like a badge of honor. "You forged her signature," I said flatly. Her tone shifted sharper, colder. "Watch it, Liz. You don't know what you're talking about." I took a slow breath. "Actually, I do." Douglas found inconsistencies, stamps that don't exist, handwriting that doesn't match. Silence. Then a forced laugh. "You're being dramatic again. Maybe that lawyer of yours wants more money. Don't embarrass yourself." She hung up before I could answer. For a few seconds, I stood there staring at my reflection in the rain-streaked window. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, terrifyingly steady. I replayed the call, pressed record, and saved the audio. Proof. Her arrogance had handed it to me. By the time I sent the file to Douglas, I was already writing another email. Proceed. Collect everything. When my mother called later that night, I almost didn't pick up. But guilt won. "Sweetheart," she said warmly, "I just spoke to Malene. She told me she sold Grandma's place. Such a relief to have that handled." "Handled?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "She's been working so hard," Mom went on. "You should be proud of her." Proud. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat. "Did she tell you who inherited it?" A pause. "She said it was divided equally." I closed my eyes. "That's not true, Mom. Grandma left it to me." "Oh, Elizabeth." She sighed, tired already. "Why start drama? Your sister's done everything right. Please just let it go." The call ended before I could respond. For a long time, I stood in the quiet, surrounded by the hum of my fridge and the low hiss of London rain. They thought I was emotional, unstable, the silly girl who ran off chasing art instead of real life. But real life was about to find them. I opened a new folder on my computer and labeled it Truth. Inside, I began dropping files, recordings, letters, comparisons. This time, I wasn't just keeping evidence. I was building a reckoning. Douglas called 3 days later. His tone brisk, controlled the way it gets when something big is about to drop. "Elizabeth," he said, "we've filed the fraud report. The court issued a freeze on the proceeds from the sale. Malene's about to find out. I pressed the phone against my ear, my heart steady. Then I guess we wait. But we didn't wait long. By noon, my phone started buzzing nonstop, one call after another. Malene. I let them ring out, watching the notifications pile up like proof of guilt. 10 missed calls, then 15, then 20. Finally, I answered. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed, her voice sharp and panicked. "I don't know," I said evenly. "Why don't you tell me? Don't play dumb, Liz." "The bank froze my account this morning. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I didn't do anything," I replied. The truth did. There was a beat of silence, then a bitter laugh. "You've lost it. You think you can ruin me? You're delusional. You stole what Grandma left me," I said coldly. "You forged her name and pocketed the money. Don't act surprised when consequences show up." Her tone cracked. "Please, you were never responsible enough to manage that property. I handled it for the family the way I always do. You should thank me. For stealing from me, for keeping you from embarrassing yourself," she snapped. "You live in another country sketching logos and drinking lattes. You don't deserve that condo." My hand tightened around the phone. "And you do." "Someone had to act like an adult," she hissed. "You never grew up." That's when something inside me broke, quietly, cleanly. "You know what, Malene, maybe I didn't. But Grandma trusted me, and you didn't just steal money. You stole her memory." She hung up. The silence after her disconnect felt heavier than her voice. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. "Mom, Elizabeth, what's going on?" Her voice was tight, panicked. "Malene's in tears. She says you filed a fraud case." "Is that true?" "It's true," I said softly, "because she forged Grandma's documents." "Don't be ridiculous," Mom snapped. "Your sister would never. She's been handling everything responsibly. You know how emotional you get." "Mom, this isn't emotion, it's evidence." Douglas verified the signatures. She admitted it on the phone. "You recorded your sister?" "Yes," I said the word slicing through the air. "Because no one ever believes me unless I prove it." A pause. Then the familiar sigh, the one that had followed me since childhood. "You used to be kind," she said finally. "I don't know what happened to you." The call ended, leaving me alone with the sound of rain and my reflection cold, unfamiliar, unflinching. For years, they had mistaken silence for weakness. Now silence was my weapon. 2 nights later, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the name attached. "Ethan Pierce, Malene's husband," I answered cautiously. "Ethan, hey, Elizabeth," he said quietly. His voice was tired, stripped of its usual politeness. "I hope I'm not crossing a line, but I think you deserve to know the truth." I stayed silent. "I didn't know what she'd done," he continued. "She told me you'd given up your claim. I didn't ask questions, but after everything blew up, the frozen account, the bank calls, I started checking things myself. And," he exhaled, "she forged it, Elizabeth. The will, the notary, everything. She said you wouldn't notice from overseas. I confronted her yesterday. She broke down, said she deserved it more. She spent part of the money on a new house. It's gone." The world went quiet around me. "And you're telling me this now because I can't keep lying for her. I'll testify if it goes to court." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then, "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. "You were right all along." When the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at the rain-streaked glass. A strange calm washed over me. Not joy, not triumph, just clarity. Douglas called the next morning. "Ethan's cooperating," he said. "We've got enough to press forward. The buyers are testifying too. If we move now, it's airtight." "Do it," I said. Hours later, Malene's lawyer reached out. They wanted to settle. "She's offering $150,000, Douglas explained, "if you drop the case and let the sale stand." I laughed bitter and low. "Half the value of what she stole." "No." "She's desperate," he said. "But if we go to trial, her side will claim Grandma wasn't of sound mind when she wrote the will. It'll be ugly." "I don't care," I said. "I'm done keeping peace at my own expense." He paused. "You sound just like your grandmother." That hurt in the best way possible. That night I couldn't sleep. I opened the last email Grandma had ever sent me. Her words glowed against the dark screen. "If I ever leave you, it's not charity. It's a promise. A promise that you'll keep living boldly." That's when I knew what to do. The next morning, I told Douglas I'll settle, but on my terms. He raised an eyebrow. Which are 4 things I said. First, she writes a notarized apology admitting everything. Second, she repays every cent to the buyers from her own account. Third, she sends a letter to our parents explaining what she did. And fourth, she agrees legally to never contest another inheritance again. He blinked, then smiled slowly. Poetic, brutal. I'll draft it. By sunset, he called back. She agreed. What's she signing now? Her lawyer said she just wants it to end. When the PDF arrived, I opened it with shaking hands. The first page began, I'm Aline Pierce. Acknowledge that I falsified legal documents related to the estate of Evelyn Monroe. Her handwriting looked small, defeated. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Douglas with a single line, justice served. But victory didn't taste sweet. It tasted heavy, like rain-soaked air before a storm breaks. Because justice doesn't erase betrayal. It only proves you were right all along. 2 weeks later, Douglas called again. It's official. The property's back under your name. Funds released. Buyers reimbursed. I walked to the window looking out at the Thames, the morning sun spilling through the clouds. What will you do now? He asked. Sell it, I said quietly. Grandma didn't leave it for me to hold on. She left it for me to move forward. When the payment cleared, I stared at the balance, $350,000. But it wasn't the number that made me cry. It was what it represented belief. I quit my job 2 weeks later and opened my own studio, Evelyn Creative. 1 desk, 1 client, 1 dream that finally belonged to me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. The condo sold faster than I expected. When the funds hit my account, I sat in the quiet of my apartment watching the numbers glow on the screen. Grandma had given me the courage to stand up for myself, and I finally had. A month later, a small package arrived from Florida Mom's handwriting on the box. Inside was Grandma's silver watch and a folded note. She would want you to have this. I turned the watch over, tracing the engraving on the back. The world is waiting. The ticking was faint, but steady, like a heartbeat that had traveled across time. Malene moved back near our parents, sold her new house at a loss, and filed for separation. I didn't hate her anymore. I just hoped she learned what Grandma taught me, that freedom and integrity are worth more than anything you can steal. One morning, sunlight spilled across my studio desk, warming the silver watch on my wrist. I smiled, whispering I made it, Grandma. Outside London buzzed new clients, new beginnings, a life that finally fit. If you've ever had to fight for what's right, tell me, was it worth it? Hit subscribe and share your story.